So over the past few days, many creators have gotten a chance to talk with Bungie devs about their latest game, Marathon. And in those interviews, there was a lot of extra details that was revealed that necessarily wasn't put in the reveal showcase. So I wanted to take all those interviews and kind of put them together in a one-stop shop video where you can kind of get up to date on pretty much everything that's either in the works, having active discussions, or pretty solid plans on right now for Marathon as a whole. Just want to say a quick thank you to all the creators for posting your videos, and a quick thank you to all the Bungie devs for taking the time to talk to all the gups and monks out there. They're all lucky in my eyes, but I appreciate you guys for doing that anyway. I know your job is hard. We appreciate you. And there is a substantial amount of information in this video, so I'm going to try my best to timestamp it and keep things as cohesive as I can. But again, if you're looking for specific types of information, hopefully the time blocks and the categories that I've selected are helpful for you. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So starting off first, a lot of the information and things that we should really look at first is like the core vision or the core beliefs of Marathon as a whole, right? It's kind of a lot of new with a mix of some old for Bungie and Marathon as a whole. So I felt it was important to kind of go over some of the philosophies that they felt was important, and it kind of bleeds into why a lot of the gameplay decisions and structures were made. So first and foremost, Bungie felt that extraction shooters was the next medium that they could bridge the gap on and add that Bungie flair, like we've seen Halo, where they pretty much revolutionized console shooters, and Destiny, where they pretty much bridged that gap between FPS, MMOs, all that type of stuff, right? And they felt extraction shooters was that next bridge for them. And then moving on to like why Marathon, from what I gathered, Bungie had a sense that Marathon kind of missed out on that like gaming expansion, and they felt that the IP sort of missed out on the opportunity to have its kind of roots expanded out. So they wanted to take this opportunity to not only build on top of the game, but to also add new people into the Marathon ecosystem. And then building on top of that, they wanted to have like the narrative focus told through like obviously playing and exploring the map, character voice lines, exploring the factions, exploring the secrets on the map. They wanted the narrative focus to have like a big sort of selling point through not only like gameplay focus and gameplay solutions, but also gameplay exploration as well. And then lastly, for runners, I know a lot of people are comparing those to heroes right now, but again, given through some of these developer interviews, and we're going to go over it a little bit more, their philosophy for runners was not thinking of them as heroes, but thinking of them as canvases. While the kit might be specific to a specific character, base stats are the same, but you can also sort of spec the character into a way that kind of fits how you want to play, but with like a core sense of mechanics that kind of help put you in a specific role that you might want to fill. And speaking on top of that, we're going to move into our first real sort of section here of build crafting and customization. They wanted to start at like a baseline and then build from there. Have you mixing and matching cores and implants, and we'll talk about those in a little bit too, which I think this is kind of what, again, that like build crafting is. I'm a little new in this area, so forgive me if I get some things wrong, but they wanted to think of it so like even though me and you might play Void, the way that we build our Void will be different, and we'll kind of handle situations differently depending on how the like upgrades or status points that we put into certain things will again shape that character to be your own. So we both have the same baseline as Void, but your Void will be maybe more stealth focused, and my Void will be maybe more action focused or combat focused, right? All the things that you would kind of consider for like a hero shooter or things like that, base speed, health, loot speed, all those types of things, they're pretty much identical throughout all of the runners. For example, they brought up a small nuance where like, yeah, even though one runner might have a quicker health regen time, it's still like optimal that you use the consumable, because yeah, even though Locust, and this is just like a off the cuff example, but like even though Locust might start their health regen at 2 minutes and 15 seconds and Void starts theirs at 2 minutes and 20 seconds, it's still like not a big difference, right? Both pretty much need to use those consumables and play a way that is pretty much in line with how all the runners will be. Speaking of runners, obviously we have the 4 runners in the alpha, and then we'll have the 6 runners at launch. They do have plans to add more runners, and they do have plans right now to not really change the kit of the runner too much. mainly because they want people to be able to identify and know what's happening on the fly based off of the silhouette of the runner. So even though we might be 7 or 8 seasons deep into Marathon, you should still be able to like if you see Locust right off the cuff, you should like already know what Locust is and what they're doing, right? But they're not like necessarily neglecting the fact that some things might need to be adjusted as things go down the road. As a MOBA player, I play Smite and things of that nature. You know, sometimes you'll get to the 100th character in the game and people are still even using like the first 5 because their kits are completely broken, or some characters just fall to the wayside and are in the depths because their kit just got outdated by another new character or something like that. So I definitely feel like that's pretty important to kind of keep tabs on. So we have implants. Implants, you might want to think of these as just like your kind of overall stat increases. So here we have implants. You can think of implants as sort of like a baseline sort of stat increase. So things of more stamina, higher slide speed, kind of just like an overall flat increase to like a character's inherent ability of some nature. And cores are sort of like your game-changing passive. So things like they brought up things like you stand still and you go active camo, but you build up heat, right? Or just a way for you to have a character kind of be more finely tuned to a specific playstyle or scenario that you would like to be. And a lot of these you can acquire obviously by going in the world and finding them and bringing them out, or you can also go into the black market and buy these as well, which you can also upgrade your black market to get access to better gear. But this is a little weird because this is one of those conversations where they're trying to avoid necessarily someone just going like just upgrading their black market and then buying all the best gear and then not really worrying about like going in and looting and finding stuff. So this is one of those scenarios where they're like kind of actively iterating on, but again, just wanted to bring that up. There was also the use of gold items. So a common comparison is exotics. They all pretty much have unique behaviors. And some of these that they brought up were like landing from a really high place and causing an explosion when you land, a double jump that goes to a triple jump. When you slide, you don't build up heat. A lot of these gold items you can think as like not necessarily like game changing, but like very pretty much like overhaul like abilities or bonus statuses or bonus sort of features to an already sort of existing component. And then an interesting part that they brought up for this, they wanted the building and the build crafting to have sort of a push-pull effect. They didn't want necessarily to just like have people just like power stat dump into a certain thing and then feel the best, right? There's always going to be some sort of like plus and minus effect with like whatever sort of attribute upgrade you sort of go with. So they kind of wanted that be a little more intuitive with how you think about building out your character. And then also one last thing for building and build crafting and customization. There was brought up like crazy drops, like one-time loot drops, like exotic mods, things of that nature. And they were pretty hesitant to speak on it, but I'm getting the assumption that they're like in the game, but like you gotta like really find them or like really get lucky, one of those type of scenarios. But they kind of are alluding to like some crazy kind of like one-off kind of core scenario being in the game. So kind of keep your eyes open for things of that nature. Hey guys, Editing CJ here. Just wanted to quickly add, there will obviously be skins in the game. They said that a lot. They are in the game, they're present. The only thing that we don't really know is how we're really going to get them. Obviously everyone's not done. There's going to be MTX stuff in the game, but really hoping to see some gameplay stuff or like gameplay opportunities to unlock skins. But again, they just said, yeah, they're in the game. So that's all that we have for the build crafting and customization. Now we're going to move over to the map and the world for Marathon. So for right now, each map has a different size and player count. So right now we know of Dire Marsh, which is apparently the largest map, which has a player size of about 18. And then also wanted to kind of add on to this that during the developer interviews, they were touching on like survival rates of these maps. So Dire Marsh being one of the like first maps that you get, they said that their survival rate would probably be around 45 to 50%, which still is like, you know, tough, but pretty easy. And then they have Perimeter, which is the next map, which is like the medium sized map that I'm hearing about. This one has a 15 player size. And I've also been seeing floating around that it has a possible survivability rate of 30 to 35%. Then also on top of that, we have a third map that has kind of been undisclosed. I've been hearing hints about it, and I'm kind of getting it. I might be getting it confused with the fourth map that's supposed to come with season 1. One of these maps is supposed to be like aboard the Marathon ship, potentially with like a pretty crazy PvE presence. And I think the third map will also be smaller than Perimeter, and maybe have a player size of, I'm thinking probably around 8 to 12, maybe something of that nature. And then, like we've heard so far, the fourth map is supposed to be like the craziest map by far. It's supposed to have like possibly raid mechanics, things of that nature. But again, at the time of this recording, nothing has really kind of been said otherwise outside of just like stay tuned. Speaking of the maps, you do queue into these maps yourself. There's no like kind of just loading up and then you get what you get. The only thing to kind of be aware of is they're trying not to overwhelm the player right off the start. So they might have like a little like unlock situation going where like you can't just jump into the third map if this is your first day playing. They might have you do a couple things or reach like a certain level before you get to that map. And then speaking of maps, there are contracts specific to certain maps / zones, and we'll talk about that in a quick second as well. And then again, something I kind of touched on earlier, they wanted to really focus on maps playing a part in helping tell the story, the lore, the narrative. There's supposed to be a lot of secrets on these maps. They're really pushing like having players explore and uncover these secrets on the maps, so just be on the lookout for that. One of the core sort of pillars for them of the world building was that they really wanted the world to kind of push back on the player. They wanted the world to feel dangerous, and they wanted pretty much you surviving and getting out to feel like a win within itself, versus just like you getting out is kind of be like something you're supposed to do. Speaking of just like the world being dynamic and changing like that, obviously they will have dynamic weather. They did say it won't be like super dynamic, so like if it's raining, it might rain a little heavier. If it's thunderstorming, it might thunderstorm a little more, things in that nature. Nothing like super crazy. And the reasoning behind like this was because they didn't necessarily want the players to lose focus on the game to become like a weatherman. But outside of that, they still have map hazards and things of that nature. They brought up one which was like a lightning strike, which is essentially like if you get hit by lightning, you will lose a large percent of your health, and you will also have a status effect associated with getting hit by lightning, which is something they didn't touch on in the reveal, which specifically for the lightning strike is kind of like an EMP scenario where like you can't use your abilities for a certain amount of time, right? And then they dove a little deeper into this as well, so there will be like initial status effects, and then there will also be lingering status effects. And one of these they touched on was like there's a poison status effect. So while you're poisoned, obviously like most games, you'll take tick damage while you're poisoned, but also after you get poisoned, there's a lingering status effect. The lingering status effect will cause the player to take longer to use heals or consumables. Not sure for how long, and not sure what will all cause that to happen. I'm not sure if it's just like a grenade effect or like a map thing, something like that, because they did mention things like poison rooms, other like toxic map POIs as well. So I'm not sure the like specific details around that, but that was something that I figured was pretty interesting, because again, they didn't really reveal that in the gameplay trailer or anything like that. But initial status effects are crazy, but then lingering status effects are also kind of crazier, so just be on the lookout for that. They also brought up the fact that UESC troops will reinforce the area, so even though you might wipe out the initial squad that's there, in a few minutes they kind of will sort of refresh or respawn, be reinforced. Again, kind of reinforcing that method of having the world push back on you as a player or as other players. And then also something to kind of just keep track of, that I noticed, they built the POIs out of different intensities. And I think obviously there are certain parts of the map that you'll go on that will essentially have a higher essence, a higher concentration of maybe PvE elements, maybe more enemies. They do have enemy variants or different enemy types, so maybe one of the like ghost commanders are there. And then speaking of POIs and things of that nature, so just kind of talking about the map a little bit for the exfil portion. So there's two types of exfils, technically three, but there's two types of exfils in the game. There's normal exfils. Normal exfils can be used multiple times, so just be aware of that. And then also on the map, there are guarded exfils, which are essentially an exfil where you need to clear out a UESC squad, and then from that you can also exfil. Interesting thing about this exfil though is that this exfil can only be used one time, I've heard. So it seems like a one and done type of scenario, which I've heard some toxic things from certain developers, whereas like someone will initiate the exfil and not even leave just to have that exfil be off the map, right? And then just to kind of touch on exfils one more time, in the game you have a 25-minute timer, like a doomsday kind of last train out scenario. I think of like at 3 minutes when on the map, there'll be a one final exfil that pretty much everyone can use. Doesn't matter if it's friend or foe, everyone can use this. I think this is also applied to normal exfils as well. Like it's not like a hunt showdown scenario where like if there's an enemy on the exfil with you, it like negates the timer. It just, if anyone's in it by the time it goes off, it's over, right? You're all out, which I found very, very interesting. One thing that I found also pretty interesting was that they were having discussions about the potential of maps changing over time, which I found interesting is because like it definitely kind of would help to keep the maps feeling fresh season over season, instead of just like pretty much going to the same spots, going to the same sort of routes that you run all the time. They are keeping those conversations open, but I thought it was important to bring up in case you might want that or you might not want that, right? Me personally, I think it'd be pretty cool to have the maps change over time or the regions change over time, just to kind of add like, again, like an extra layer of freshness, maybe when like a wipe happens or something like that. And then lastly, there were multiple questions brought up of like an end game map similar to labs, which I'm not really familiar with, but Tarkov players might be. I think it's supposed to be like a super hard like map with a bunch of it seems like a hard map. I don't know, that's all I got, but it was asked a couple times in a couple of these videos, so I'm assuming it's is big boss energy in that motherfucker. I don't know, you can let me know on that one, but I've got some mixed responses on that. Was one of the responses was like, well, we can't really talk about that, we I don't know, and then the other one was like, well, you know, we stay tuned. So I'm assuming yes, but like I said, I don't really know too much about that, so I can't really compare it to anything. So that's going to do everything for maps in the world. And then we're going to move over here to gameplay mechanics. So gameplay mechanics, starting off kind of lame here, but just needs to be said. There will be skill-based matchmaking in the game. There are active conversations about how they really want to implement it, but the consistent basis that I've gotten so far was that it'll be based off of your runner time, which is kind of just like your overall level, which is kind of just like your overall time into the game. Again, might not be like the strongest, but hey, that's kind of what they're going for right now. And then it was also brought up that what if someone just like wants to go smurf and stomp on smaller or newer players? They said they're still looking into ways to combat that as well. Also part of gameplay mechanics, again, it is a session start time, so everyone should start on the same footing. There's no type of like you joining in 5 minutes after the run has already started. Everyone should kind of be started on the same footing. And then also for sort of a gameplay mechanic when it comes to like your loadout, you can have a faction sponsored loadout. So if you're at like the bottom of the barrel, you got like nothing left, one of the factions can provide you a free loadout. But also on top of that, what I heard is you can also just buy a faction loadout if you want to. If you're above like a money threshold in your vault, you can get one of the faction loadouts. You won't be able to get it for free. I think they'll ask you to pay for it, but I thought that was pretty interesting because everything we've heard so far is just like, hey, you can just get one. So wanted to bring that up as well. Another kind of thing for gameplay that I wanted to bring up is that your loot is filtered in your backpack. It looks like from what I saw. So it looks like at the top will be like your bigger items, your guns, your big meds, things of that nature, and then they will kind of just filter out as you go down to the bottom. As of right now, there's no option to store or insure your items, nothing of that nature. And then a quick sort of like gameplay feature mechanic that I kind of wanted to talk about was shields. So there's a lot of different like shields in the game. There's a lot of different shield varieties. Shields also have like a pro con negative with them as well. So one take that was brought up was like you can have a shield that does less, you take less bullet damage, but you also have like less heat capacity with that shield, so you can only do so much like movement stuff before you kind of like tire out, which I found interesting. And then another thing about this is that like they wanted shields to act more like not necessarily like a armor, but like a more HP type of thing, just because like when you get down to like gunplay and stuff like that, they didn't want it to necessarily really be like I had more health type of scenario, so you lose. So I just wanted to bring that up as well. There's no friendly fire in the game as of right now. No friendly fire, probably no plans for that in the future as well, but wanted to bring that up as well. For weapon mod removal, this is a highly contested topic. When it comes to like dealing with weapon mods, taking them, using them, selling them, it's a lot of that is like up in the air right now. A lot of their concerns are worried about like ballooning the economy by just like ripping these mods off of weapons and then selling them or whatever. So again, no real concrete definition on like how weapon mod removals will really handled in the alpha or like full game, but just wanted to bring it up as well. Another kind of small but really important detail, reconnect features. There is a reconnect option in the game, so if you do disconnect, lag out, whatever, you do have the ability to kind of load back in and see what's happening. Also wanted to bring up the fact that when you exfil, you will have items that will essentially be auto sold for you, to avoid necessarily like playing inventory manager when you get into your vault. The only things that you'll necessarily have to like play Tetris with when you get out is like the weapons, your consumables, and your ammo. I also wanted to say that for purple or above level items, I'm thinking this is leaning more towards materials, but it wasn't necessarily specified. It only requires a team extraction, and if it does, it gets dispersed across the team. So if maybe you have like I know they have like card chips or whatever in the game or whatever, if there's like a purple one, or if there's like purple mats that you get or gold mats or whatever, and you somehow go down and die but your team still extracts, you still get that, which I find very interesting, very cool as well. And then lastly, for the last thing for the gameplay mechanics, there is like a scrap slash like weapon durability hidden mechanic, where if like someone drops a gun and then someone takes it and then someone else drops that gun, someone takes it, there's only so many times that you can kind of change over, have that gun change owner so many times before like when you go to extract it, it'll come up as like scrap, and you can only just like get the credits from that instead of like the actual like material or gun. So that's all that we have for gameplay and mechanics. Now we're going to kind of move over into progression. So a lot of the progression in the game will come via contracts, obviously outside of like kill XP and things of that nature, but the contracts are like the big way to get most of your like progression in the game. And as of right now, there are 3 types of contracts. So there are priority contracts. I'm looking at these more like quests. These are how you kind of like move the story forward, how you progress the faction tree, things of that nature. Then there's boosted contracts, which are like kind of standard contracts, but they should give you like a bigger XP buff if you do those. There's standard contracts, which these can be thought of as like dailies and weeklies. You can kind of re-roll those type of scenarios, kind of expect those every day. And then there's also lost contracts. These are contracts that you can find in the world that you can extract with, and that will be kind of added to your contract like pool. Then moving over to some more items in the progression tree. So a big part of the like progression system is your factions. There's 6 factions in the game, and you can upgrade each of these 6 factions sort of like individually. You take a contract for them, and then you complete them, and then you get like an XP gain to the faction. Side note for this though, I'm not sure if it's for every sort of level for the faction, but some factions, when you want to progress to the next level or the next node, you need to not only meet the XP requirement, but there's a materials requirement you need to meet as well. And again, these like faction contracts and like these faction rank ups provide you some like pretty good bonuses to your character kit and things of that nature as well. One of the like philosophical things that they talked about here for progression is for wipes, the sandbox loot chase isn't the only thing to like really go for. So you're not really just there to get like weapons and then like gear and then like that's about it. They didn't really specify what else that there was to go for, but I'm assuming like they want to do things like reward playtime and reward like maybe challenges or puzzles done. So I'm assuming things like maybe titles, cosmetics, emblems, charms, things of that nature, things that you can kind of like rock and show off for like the next wipe or things of that nature. So wanted to bring that up. Also, speaking again on contracts, some contracts don't require you to extract to get progress on the contract. Thought that was pretty important for some people to know. Another kind of thing here, which I kind of think is a missed opportunity, but there's no exfil streaks, which if you aren't really familiar with that, I think it was for DMZ and Modern Warfare 2 for Call of Duty. If you like exfilled consistently a couple times, you would get like bonus rewards based on how many like consistent exfills that you had. Which I think should be probably implemented in a game like this, especially where they feel like you not making it is part of like the draw. Well, give me a reason to make it some more so I can like, you know, if I exfil 5 times, I get like a bonus like a bonus whatever, you know, maybe another piece of gear or like some bonus faction XP, whatever. I think they should probably look at adding that into the game. And then lastly, just a kind of housekeeping thing, cross save and cross play are in the game. So if you want to like jump on your Xbox, play there, and then maybe jump on PC, your save progress should also be there as well. So that's going to do everything for progression. And then now we're going to move on to solo, duo play, cheating, and tech. So I know a lot of the worry in the game, or worry for the game, is that like you being a solo isn't really viable. They wanted to say for sure that there is a place for solo players. Quote unquote, the rat life is alive and well. But they really sent home the fact that for solo and duo players, where a lot of your success will come from is having map knowledge, game knowledge, and just having that experience. Obviously, you'll be a man down or two men down in the situation, and they don't want you to necessarily feel like you can't do anything. But again, they are stating that the challenge or the gameplay will be harder just because you like don't have that extra man or extra two men with you. You know, you're on your own. So they definitely reward solo and duo players with like having that in-game knowledge on hand. Speaking of which, on top of player numbers, there's no ability at this time to form platoons, which, if you aren't familiar with this, is essentially a DMZ mechanic from Modern Warfare 2, where when you're in the world and you come across a rando player, you can actually add that rando player to your squad for like the duration of that game, or at least until like you decide that they don't want to be in there anymore, which I think could also be a missed opportunity. I know their scenario is like, we want the like player coordination to be like sort of a way that causes friction in the world, so you don't necessarily know what the other team is going to be up to or the other player is going to be up to. But I feel like if they're going to have mechanics in the game that's like super PvE or puzzle heavy, maybe that should be looked into, just because it might be better if like, hey, maybe 6 puzzle heads hop into the game. They don't necessarily want to fight, but they want to figure out what's happening, and they don't have proxy chat or text chat. No proxy chat or text chat. There's team text chat, but no all text chat. They're not going to have, I mean, there's only so much you can do about like, you know, continuously crouching. There's only so much you can infer, right? But yeah, I figured that might be something that they could look into. And then speaking of like cheating and things of these nature, so they do have a fog of war system in the game, which I'm not too familiar with the technical terms, so forgive me if I mess things up. But essentially what that means is like, since they're running the game on a dedicated server, if a cheater is like trying to get necessarily extra information from like the other client or the other box that the other user is on, they shouldn't have the ability to do that because they don't have that system's information. That's what I got from that. Also, on top of that, like again, they will have dedicated servers, and they will also have a security team to monitor for cheaters. I'm not sure if that's going to be a game by game thing, if that's going to be like a report type of style thing, not sure, but they did mention a couple times that they have a security team to monitor cheaters. And then they also don't have any kernel level anti-cheat, but they do have an anti-cheat, so I just wanted to bring that up as well. And then this was brought up from the Dr. Lupo interview, where he mentioned RMT, which is real money trading, which is essentially a system where a player will pay real money for an item that a cheater got, that they like cheated for essentially, and then exchange it, I guess, in game. They are aware of this, and they are actively looking into ways to combat it. I think one of the ways that they are going to combat this, which I didn't necessarily talk about, but it might come up in my next section, but there is like a loan system in the game. So like, say me and you load into a lobby and you don't have anything, I can give you like a pretty cool gun from my backpack or something like that, and you can have that for like the duration, and then when we extract, you don't get to keep that. It goes back to me, right? So that's like one way to combat that if they like team, but I'm not sure how that would get combated if they were like somehow managed to link up. Listen, I don't know, that stuff will lose me all the time. I don't know. I'm not a cybersecurity tech. I don't know. And then lastly, for tech options, there were asked if there were like accessibility options, accessibility features. Yes, those are also in the game. They were brought up like subtitle size, reticle changes, color changes for like colorblind settings and things of that nature. But they are looking to have more feedback on that to implement more or better options. So that's everything for solo, cheating, and tech. And now we're going to move on to combat, feel, and future plans. So starting off with combat feel, the most important thing to kind of talk about in a game like this is TTK. So for this, it was like a kind of big sort of area of discussion. They didn't necessarily give any hard numbers or like details or things of that nature. They said it was important for a player to feel like they had clutch factor or clutch ability. Definitely mentioned having positioning skill, gun skill, a lot of like skill talk for like TTK. Also was mentioned that precision damage matters, but they don't want to make like having headshots be the end all be all. They also brought up stopping power, so like how bullets affect you if you're like trying to run away or things of that nature. And then they talked about like health to bullet ratio, and they also talked about like hit punch, which is essentially like, well, if I have the bigger gun, you just lose, right? So they didn't really give anything too concrete. There were some areas brought up where like some people said the TTK felt like Halo, some people said the TTK felt like Destiny, and they kind of combated that with like, well, we do want our TTK to be consistent, but we don't necessarily want to compare it to those games because they kind of feel like they're in a special position. Lastly, for like some of the TTKs, they said they're not trying to really have a prolonged TTK because again, they're trying to help out with like 1v2, 1v3 situations where they want to like give that person without the advantage the ability to at least take down everybody if they can. And again, they lean back into having gun skill, having positioning skill, having map knowledge, those things of that nature. So again, no real like hard facts or evidence, but again, some things that you could probably align with a little bit. And then moving on here, there was asked if the weapons would be hit scan or projectile based, and the answer was it's kind of a bit of both. It depends on the weapon type and a lot of that. They also have some weapons that have tracking capabilities, so I'm not sure how that's going to go down, but yeah, some weapons will be hit scan, some weapons will be projectile based. It all kind of depends on the weapon at hand, pretty much. There are no plans currently to have leaning in the game, no plans for that, not even a contextual lean, no plans. Aim assist was also another one of those scenarios where they didn't really give like a hard sort of scenario for it. There is a toggle for it to have it on and off for PC. Again, they talked about really wanting to have value skill, having skill for that both for M&K and controller. They talked about having like a big sort of balancing act for aim assist on mouse and keyboard and controller. And what I've heard for a little bit of that is like sometimes for controller players it can feel not as smooth, not as fast, which they said they're looking into, and they've had more iterations on that and they're getting some thumbs up from that. I've also heard that things are a little too easy on mouse and keyboard. Not really sure what that means all the way, but Tenzin did play it. He's like a Valorant pro. He said it's also easy as hell. So listen, I don't know. Well, that's got to be something that's going to be worked on. I'm sure everybody's going to be screaming from the rooftops about that anyway. So also was asked, but more gore was brought up a couple times. They're saying that's still in development, so I'm not really sure how they're going to go with that. I know some people had some issues with like cyan blue Sparky's blood coming out, and they kind of wanted to go back to that like blood that we saw in the like original Marathon trailer. Not sure, but that was brought up as well. And then again, proxy chat was brought up. It's up for debate. They're trying to kind of figure out what's happening, seeing what the response is. It seems like an overwhelming yes, have proxy chat, which like, yeah, put proxy chat in the game, bro. There's a lot of stuff for y'all talking about. Hey, we need players to explore, interact type of stuff. We need proxy chat. We need something. Everybody just can't be going around teabagging at each other like, don't shoot me, because no, we need proxy chat has to be in. Y'all gotta get that figured out. That's all I gotta say. Also, no plans for kill cams, no plans for anything like that. End game stuff, there is sort of like a ranked mode, rated mode that they talked about having. And then when it was brought up, is it something that we should like really strive to play for, or is it kind of just like a bragging rights thing? They said we can't really talk about that right now, so take that how you will. And then lastly here, just a couple of rapid fire things. Plans for hideouts being discussed. What's the game rating? They said they can't talk about it right now. No destructible environments. I mean, there's like glass breaking and like door breaking stuff, but nothing like going on like a battlefield scale or something like that. UI, how close is it to being finished? Still under development. Take that how you will. Roadmaps, yes, they do plan to have lots and lots of roadmaps. And lastly, are we going to see more of the older factions? And I put this in quote, we cannot talk about that right now. So again, take that as you will. And yeah, that's pretty much all of the information that I was able to gather from the developer interviews, especially sort of like the bigger ones. There's some like little bits and pieces in there that I could have added, but for the most part, this is all the stuff that we know so far, and some additional details. Because again, there's some stuff that they could have showed in the reveal that wasn't in this, that a lot of people, when they found out, were like, that's in the game? What's happening? So yeah, but hey, Marathon is shaping up to be a very, very interesting game. Like I said before, I'm hyped. I plan on making a lot of content. I'm not used to really making videos like this. I'm used to being just like the funny, goofy guy that does gameplay stuff, but it's pretty cool to kind of keep everybody informed and be informed myself. So if you like more videos like these, please be sure to give your boy a like, and let's have a discussion in the comments about what's happening. I'm trying to keep this area pretty civil because, listen, I know what the sort of internet sentiment is for Marathon, so I'm trying my best to make a space to have people actually talk about the game in a productive manner, both positive or constructive, whatever. So yeah, be sure to like the video for more Marathon stuff, and be sure to subscribe if you want more of me. Hope you guys have a good one, and I'll see y'all hopefully in the alpha.